you. Welcome back to House Commerce and Economic Development. It is Friday, January 10th at 1:02 p.m. We have some folks from the Joint Fiscal Office here with us this afternoon to introduce themselves and share a little bit about, or a lot about what they do. Patrick, would you mind starting?
So thank you. I am Patrick Titterton. I am a senior fiscalist or fiscal analyst. Fiscalist kind of works too. With the Joint Fiscal Office, we're in that building right over there, which you can all see out of your window. So I do see some familiar faces, but before I kind of jump in, do you mind if I ask you all to tell me who you all are?
Great.
Where you're from?
Sure, I'll start. I'm Dave Bosch, Rutland two, Wallingford, in West Rutland and most of town.
I'm Tony Nicholas, Chittenden, Franklin County, Nelson, Georgia.
Michael Newton, Merrick City. Rick White, Bethel, ranking member.
Katie Branding, Jericho and Underhill.
Abby Duke, Park of Burlington.
Herb Olson, Starksville, but also Vista Lincoln and Upton.
Emily Karras, Wilmington, Whitingham, and Halifax.
I'm Jonathan Cooper, I live in Pownell, and Ben one includes Searsburg, Reedsboro, Stamford, and Woodford.
You guys have the whole state covered in here. Yeah, no, so thanks. I've seen all your names in writing. It's just nice to put some faces to all those. So I guess just to tell you a little bit about our office, I heard you had Ledge Counsel in here today, right? So of course, they help you with all the drafting and figuring out what's possible in the legal sense of things. Our office kind of distilled down to one point is we do the money. So my primary portfolio actually lies like I do tax policy for the most part. Primarily, I'm working on personal income taxes and corporate income taxes and things related to that. But what I do do to support this committee in particular is I do work in economic development, workforce, minimum wage, workers' comp. I write the basic needs budget, unemployment insurance, just insurance in general. So there's plenty of overlap with my portfolio that you often see me in here on. One thing that I also do for this committee is, a lot of, historically in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of like economic development type omnibus bills coming out of, this committee and your counterparts in the Senate. And so when you're working on policy where you're spending money, what I kind of do for you is act as a bit of a liaison with the budget team. So to figure out, make sure that the appropriations are matching up and fitting into that puzzle that the appropriations committee is working on to make sure that the budget's balanced. So I help you work with them and sort of, if you have questions, hey, what did we do last year on this? Is this, do they still have money left over in this program? A lot of times, the admin people running the program are probably the best people to ask some of those questions on, but I definitely will help you with like the big picture and how the work that you're very focused on, you have your very niche, every committee has their very niche policy things that they're really taking deep dives on, but it needs to be within the greater context of balancing the budget. So I'll help you with that. So I'm here with Ted. This is Ted Barnett. He's also a senior fiscal analyst with us. Primarily, I asked him to come because he does TIFs. So. So.
We don't have an extra chair. I don't know if you want to speak from where you are. You can introduce yourself to the.
Sure. Ted Barnett, also a senior fiscal analyst with Pat, as Pat mentioned, work on the TIFs, but also like Pat, I also spend a lot of time with consumption taxes and don't necessarily, TIFs aren't the only thing I do. I also work on agency fees. So if you have a question about what's going on with the ACCD or how they're generating fee revenue, I can answer some of those questions. There's a new fee kind of build process in which they're working with JFO to create fee reports. So I'm pretty intimately familiar with those. And I also work on the property transfer tax and some kind of smaller municipal issues. So those might be relevant to you all.
And I guess just to tell you a little bit more about our office, so obviously citizen legislature, right? You guys don't all have your own personal staff. We are a nonpartisan office, meaning if you're a PROG, a Dem, or a Republican, we work for you all equally. I mentioned that because, everyone is always welcome to come seek our help. Even if you're just noodling on some idea, you don't know if you're going to introduce it, or you want to learn about something, we're next door to help you sort of dig into some of those pieces. And don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah, and I know I've worked with Chair Marcotte for this will be my fourth session. So I've worked with Chair Marcotte through all of those, and I know there's been quite a bit of turnover in this committee since the first time I was in here, but it's great to meet you all. And, again, don't be strangers. Let me know how I can support you all. If you have any questions about our office, I'm pretty free right now.
Do you want to talk about your monthly newsletter?
Sure. So the fiscal, what's it, the fiscal focus, exactly. Grady in our office will pull together sort of I think it's quarterly letter, and it'll include how are state revenues doing compared to this consensus forecast? Are we coming in below? That hasn't happened since I've been here, that the consensus forecast overshot what we actually collected, but it'll also give you information on just how we're looking compared to where we think we're at. And that's important context for building the budget. One reason being, I don't know if you've heard the term for the contingent list or the waterfall. Once we get to the crunch end of the session, and this can often matter with the work that you do in here. If the decision might become, if the money's there, we'll fund it. If it's not, it's on this contingent list. The money ran out, so it's not available. So that's just another kind of dynamic to think about when you're seeking funds. But yeah, it also include other things, like I know at the end of the fiscal year, I have all the tie-out information, maybe some information on like fund balances or progress reports on certain initiatives like programs, grant funding, that type of stuff. And what else is in there?
That's generally.
That's kind of a generally good overview of what's in there. One thing you'll be receiving probably next month is our fiscal facts booklet, which I think is a great sort of first stop resource for how much do we generally raise from personal income taxes, or what are some recent tax highlights, like what's changed recently that might be of interest to me, or just historical funding information, because we do put the 5-year report, which is like a 5-year budget look back in that. So it's a little booklet. It's about this thick, but it's got tons of information. It's kind of like a good first stop. And so, yeah, I mean, we write reports. Like I mentioned, I'll be coming in here, I believe, with the basic needs budget report that's being released next Wednesday. And Ted, called him Tiff because there's a TIF report. There's a TIF report also coming next Wednesday, so I'm sure that he'll be in here to talk to you all about that and just sort of where we're at with it. And yeah, I mean, we also on our website, if new member orientation, they probably showed you a little bit how to navigate it. We have a lot of great issue briefs, which are kind of like white papers, just on topics we either get a lot of questions about or we think are going to be important coming up. Just as an example, I'm going to be publishing one on Social Security taxation in Vermont, probably within a week or two. So that'll be a new thing. Chris Roop is going to be publishing one on pensions shortly. That's some topic that interests you.
Is the report a summary of activities, or is it an assessment, say, an activity report of the policy itself? Is it limited to financial impacts thereof?
I think the answer to that question is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is certain statutory in Act 69 of 2017 outlay the statutory charge for the TIF report. So yes, yes, there is a specific piece on the kind of economic and fiscal impacts of the program, an update on what's happened since the last report. So it's statutorily required every 4 years. So this is the third version of that. There's a long history on it. And there's a piece around assessing kind of the overall amount of debt and the debt affordability associated with the TIF program.
So most of these reports a statute exists that details what you include in those. Is that common for all the reports that you issue?
So that's a good question. There's a bit of a distinction. When I talk about a report, that will refer to something that's either in statute as a regularly reoccurring report. Some examples are the basic needs budget, the TIF report, the tax expenditure report. Those are all reports that are in statute as, our office as being required to publish them. When I talk about the issue briefs, those are more as they come up and we think they'll be of use or interest to the body. We'll write those.
So when we're hearing the term report, we could be thinking along statute, not necessarily, but
So one thing I should also throw out, there are typically when there's a study committee, there will be a report attached to that study committee. Now, we'll only write those reports when we're directly staffing them. It could be that, you set up a study for an administration department to do, and they'll be the ones responsible for that report. But typically, reports either in statute or it's been prescribed in session law. Yeah.
So there's reports and issue briefs and then fiscal notes. Is that attached directly to specific bills?
That's a great question. Those are attached directly to the bill itself. So
Issue brief is like, we think you're interested in this, so we're gonna do an issue brief. Okay.
So like as an example, you all, let's say you're doing a package of spending and grants or whatever into this one bill and you vote it out and it's moving along. So before that bill ever hits the money committees or the Ways and Means or appropriations, our office will write a fiscal note, which details all the fiscal implications, including fees or appropriations, obviously, or maybe if there's any tweaks to taxes. They can be even as esoteric as there was a sort of housekeeping captive insurance bill that came out of this committee last year. And we wrote a fiscal note. The fiscal note just said there's no fiscal impact, basically, because it was just rejiggering one of the formulas like internally with that system. So they can be anywhere from like a half page to I've written one before that was over 10 pages. And I have to say this committee was involved in that bill. That was one of those omnibus sort of workforce development type bills. Yeah.
Other questions for Patrick? Or Ted?
Well, I got lots of questions for you.
We can chat offline, absolutely.
He'll also be in with the report when it's published.
Do you want to do a quick TIF overview?
I think that would be best set up. We have a slide deck that would be a discrete amount of time, I think would be more helpful.
Perfect.
You need a cheerleader.
I think that, yes, it's the whole class of y'all. Yep.
Bennington didn't get to form an opinion.
Yep, right.
Sorry.
So I would just say that their website, it's attached to our legislative website. You can get to it from either way, is a wealth of information, and it can be a rabbit hole of hours if you really get into things, but the information is amazing. It's really helpful. So we appreciate all that you do. And then you'll be back probably for budget adjustment. That's probably being.
If there's information that the committee needs, it's usually this committee is a little bit more request based for me. I do keep tabs on you all, but if you need some kind of progress report on something, it's best to ask and not assume that I'll have it. And often what I end up doing for that is, like I said, we have our own budget team within our office, and I'll have them help. I think for that particular exercise, you're often interested in what funds are still not expended within this program. Or, oh, you ran out of all your money and you need more, you want to know that too, right? So those are some things that I can help with.
Does JFO mostly look at state as a total? Does any of its work, apart from things like specific discrete TIF districts, does the work ever break into the balance of the non-metro area of the state, or does it ever take on geographies more discrete than statewide?
So, I mean, if we use like the example of issue briefs, we write. So recently, before she retired, Joyce wrote, this is just an example, wrote an issue brief about state demographics.
Yeah.
And so that'll show everything from age, some gender stuff, and sort of dispersion in the state. So it does.
Oh yeah, how do the counties differ? Okay.
Yeah, there's
Took that on.
there's certainly ways for us to do that. I mean, I think first and foremost, our charge is usually the health and safety of the state's fiscal climate, right? But we definitely do look at more regional
Sector
questions.
specific.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely do some like industry specific research for sometimes this committee and your counterparts in the Senate. That's particularly comes up when you're establishing a nurse prefecture type program or something targeting development within a certain industry. Before you have a big manufacturing bill, you might want to know how many people are employed in the manufacturing industry in the state, right? And that's also something that, ACCD and DOL is, that's within their realm as well. So they can also be helpful with those kind of things.
Last call for questions. All right, well, thank you so much for being here today. Both of you, appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to see some of you again. It's great to meet the rest of you.